And this is my top 10 video games of all time list. First things first, this list will only include one game per series. For example, it will only include one Zelda game despite me loving almost every Zelda game there is, due to the fact my list would consist of Zelda and Pokemon and nothing else. So for the sake of variety, I'm doing one game per series. Also, this is all in my opinion, and anything on this list is subject to change in the future, however unlikely that may be. So without further ado, my top 10 list.
Number 10. Okay, rounding off start of list, number 10 is Super Mario 64. Everybody has played this game, everybody has Let's Played it, everybody has streamed it, everybody and their cousin has played it, Let's Played it, and streamed it. It's just a classic game, it's a go-to game for everybody. It's simple, it's linear, gives you free range and access. It was one of the first really huge 3D games for the 64, which was when Nintendo really blew up. At least from what I saw when I was a kid, this first came out, and I was definitely a big fan of it. I mean, I'm not a pro at it, you know, like, there's people who are just really great at it. I was never really great at it. I still enjoy it, I have fun with it, even if I'm not, like, some super pro at it. I just have some really good memories with this game. A friend of mine and I used to play this when we were little kids together, and we would talk about it all the time, and our entire friendship pretty much was originally just based around this game. And we did eventually end up playing other games, and that wasn't just the entire point of our friendship, but it definitely was a big highlight of it and the start of it. And so this game is just a classic and a very good part of my childhood. Number 9. Okay, this one is a lesser known game than the last one. It's still relatively known, and the series itself is really popular. It's gotten a lot of popularity over the years, but when this first came out, it wasn't super well known. This is Rayman. I got introduced to this game at a very young age, around the age of 7. I was living in a domestic violence shelter with my mother, and several of the kids at the shelter played this game on the computers there, because it was on for the computer and PlayStation, but I didn't have a PlayStation back then. And no one else did, because everybody was really poor and lived in the violent shelter. Anyways, we would all play that all the time, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. So I went and found it recently, picked it up for the PlayStation, because I have PlayStation 2 now, that's backwards compatible. And it's still the exact same game. Like, I remember all the memories came flooding back. It's a really fun game. That's all I can say. It's really fucking challenging. There's a lot of parts that will, like, leave you stumped, and they're really difficult. You'll die, like, thousands of times. It's really crazy how it balances certain things. You know, you'll have levels that are really, really easy, and then you'll have ones that are really, really difficult. And you never know which is going to be which. But it's still a very quirky, kind of goofy game. Back during this time, there wasn't a whole lot of games like this. It was a very unique kind of thing, and it's definitely a big staple of my childhood. Number 8. Okay, next up is Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, and I don't think anybody expected this to be on my list, because I hardly ever talk about it. I'm not huge on skating and sports games and stuff. This one is a big thing for me. I honestly don't remember what spurred me to check out this game. I just know that the first time I played this game, I was listening to the debut album by my favorite band in the world. And that probably helped shape my opinion of this game, is because I was listening to my favorite album in the world for the first time while playing this game, my appreciation for that album ended up becoming an appreciation for this game, because the two kind of happened at the exact same time. So while this game isn't some huge, oh my gosh game that, like, I constantly have to play all the time and stuff, it's still really fun. And like I said, I think most of my experience was shaped by how I was first introduced to this game. You know, I'm not a pro at it. I mess up all the time. I fall off the board. Mostly I just play for fun. And it has a great soundtrack. This is the only Tony Hawk game I've ever played, but it's still incredibly fun. And I don't know, there's lots of weird things to do. Like, you can go and watch some guy parade a goat, and you can ride a bike, or you can do just all sorts of weird things. It's a really fun game. I really don't know how to put it. It's just very simple reason. Just great soundtrack and a really fun game to screw around with. Number 7. Alright, next up is Shadow of the Colossus. Now I'm sure everybody's like, whoa, why is this not higher up on the list? Because anybody who knows me knows that Shadow of the Colossus is a game I consistently praise on a regular basis. It is a flawless masterpiece. It is gorgeous. It's just the sheer beauty of this game says more than anything else. And that's a big reason why it's on this list, is it's probably the most gorgeous game I've ever played. And the sheer challenge of it as well. When I first played this game, my heart actually raced a couple times during several of the Colossi, because they really are intimidating. It's a very intimidating experience to play this game for the first time. And it really spoke to me, because the first time I saw this game, I was really young. I was like in junior high, and I saw a neighbor play it, but I didn't play it myself. First time I played it, I was already out of high school and stuff, and I was grown up, so I don't have any nostalgic factor for this. It's just pure, I was an adult and played this, and it just knocked me flat. It was crazy. I was left breathless about how gorgeous it is. The story is beyond words. One of the best game stories I've ever seen. Probably rivaled only by Explorers of Darkness, in my opinion. And so it's one of those things that a lot of people like to complain about certain things, like the horse traveling, or trying to shine the sword to know where to go, or the lack of enemies besides the 16 Colossi. But I very much like it. It's very linear and simplistic, and I think there should be more games like that. I mean, every game out there looks like another game or another, and I think Shadow of the Colossus is one of the few that actually has its own standalone idea. And people complain about that because it's not your typical kind of game. It has something different to it that no other game really has. And so people mistake that for bad features when it's actually something different. And a lot of times people are kind of afraid to go outside of their normal boundaries, like how Gen 1ers are with Pokemon. You know, once you're comfortable with something, you don't really like expanding outside of your territory because you're afraid of being let down or whatever else. But I can promise you, Shadow of the Colossus, if you play through it, you won't be disappointed. It's worth being blown away. It'll really blow your mind. It's one of those games that you really can't go through life not playing. And my only complaint about Shadow of the Colossus is that I didn't end up playing it sooner in my life. And that is why it earns the number 7 spot. Number 6. Alright, next up is Super Smash Bros. Melee. Just like with Super Mario 64, everybody has played this game, everybody has Let's Played it, everybody has streamed it. It's a fantastic game. The tournaments for this game and the high level playing are incredible. I used to be on kind of tournament tier level, and I slacked off for a while because I really got burnt out on this game. And don't get me wrong, I mean, you will get burnt out on this game because it does get repetitive after a while, but it's one of those games that I have to play like once a month because even with the versus mode is just so much fun. I constantly find myself coming back to it. I've logged thousands of hours on this game. I've had it for so many years, and I've unlocked just about everything. And it's one of those games that you just have to play, and the verse mode is unlike any other game's verse mode. And this game is actually so good, it did better than both its prequel and its sequel. Like, very few games can manage to do that. I also like how much there is to do and how great all the different modes are. You know, you have all different things, like you have the sandbag and the target practice, like the little mini games. You have the event matches, which are really cool. I've beaten all 51. Some of them are incredibly challenging. And that's the other cool thing about this too, is it has some really challenging things like the event matches, but then it also has the simple, like, verse mode kind of stuff where you can just kind of have fun and hang loose and just mess around with friends or with the computer. Number 5. Alright, next up, number 5, is actually 2 games, which is Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. I honestly cannot pick between the two because they both have disadvantages and advantages. Banjo-Tooie's biggest disadvantage to me is the lag at certain parts. It can be very choppy animation and very slow. Banjo-Kazooie, my complaints for that are the fact that any notes you gather, if you lose a life, all the notes you've gathered so far don't really count. Like, for example, if there's 100 notes in each level, so if you gather 50 notes and then die, then you only have 50 out of 100 notes. And if you want to get all 100 notes, you have to regather all 100, including the 50 you already had. So it can be very asinine and very annoying in that sense. They're still both fantastic games. They're both very challenging, but they're also very easy. It's a very good game. They're both very good games to introduce your children to. They're very child-friendly games and something you'd want to introduce them to, because while they can be challenging for hardcore players, they can also have the easy elements for kids to kind of learn how to play games and stuff. And I always thought that was a cool thing, because when I was a kid, this was one of the first games I played, and I could always do stuff, even if there was more challenging stuff I couldn't do, there was always something I could do, because it was aimed for both kids and adults. And, I don't know, I think it's a good game. What's next? Number 4. Gen 2, before anyone says Gen 2 is better than Gen 1, that's just fact. It improved entirely on Gen 1. It nerfed psychics to such an extreme that they were no longer unbeatable, like Alakazam and Mewtwo were in Gen 1. It introduced 2 new types, Steel and Dark, which helped efficiently lower the OP nature of those psychic types. It had cooler legendaries, in my opinion. Lugia and Ho-Oh were far cooler than Mewtwo and the legendary bird stuff, and the legendary dogs are much cooler than legendary birds. That isn't to say I hate Gen 1. I really do love Gen 1, but I can look back past my nostalgia and admit how much Gen 2 improved on it. And I also like that you actually get to go back and visit Kanto from Gen 1, because this so far is the only Pokemon game where you can actually visit 2 regions in one game. So you actually get to do like twice the amount of stuff, even if Kanto kind of rushes by in this game, because by the time you get to it, you're kind of at like a very advanced level. It has fantastic music. Best music out of any Pokemon game, honestly. Gen 2 had the best soundtracks for everything, especially the legendary beast encounter, which is actually playing in the background right now as I'm saying this. So, it's just there's not really much I can say. It's just Gen 2 is the best because it vastly improved on a lot of the mess in Gen 1, and it's just so much fun, and it has so much replay value, and there's so many different things, different ways you can play it each time, and it's one of those games that's just fantastic. Number 3. Okay, for this game, a lot of my appreciation for this game came from how it was just a really great place in my life when I first played it, which isn't to say I'm blinded by the nostalgia factor. Again, refer to the last part with Pokemon Gen 2. I don't get blinded by nostalgia, I can just appreciate games. But with this game, I was at a very good place in my life, and I remember exactly, specifically, what I was doing when I first played this game, and I think that highly impacted it. It was a good moment in my life when I first played this. And overall, it's such a fun game. It is ridiculously fun. There's tons of collectibles and side quests. There's like loads and loads of side quests to do, to the point it actually took me several years to actually get through everything in the game. And I don't know, it's just a very fun game. All the side quests are fun. There's nothing that was overly tedious or anything, you know. There's never anything in the game that I was like, oh, I don't want to do this, it's so difficult or whatever. Everything was fun about it. I also like that they included the dub dialogue from the Funimation dub. A lot of people don't like the Funimation dub, you know, they're like, oh, subbed is better than dubbed, whatever, you know, like weeboo people. But I love the dub. I've been a fan of it since forever, and I think that it's just, I'm really glad they incorporated it, because a lot of games don't. So I'm glad they at least have one game that did. And also, this game has Vinny. How can you not appreciate this game with Vinny? Vinny is the best character in all of Legacy of Goku 2. Number 2. Next up is Yu Yu Hakusho, which is honestly probably like, everyone's gonna like be like, why the fuck is this on your list? Because this game gets panned to shit all the time. Everybody hates on this game. Everybody hates it. And probably because it has like really bad pixelation and stuff, and I honestly don't know why I find it so great. I mean, part of it probably contributes to Yu Yu Hakusho being my favorite series of all time. And, I don't know, I find it very fun and intriguing. And it has a very simple style, you know. Sometimes, not a lot of people agree with it, you know, like everybody goes for like, oh, it has to be a really hard, challenging game for me to enjoy it or whatever. But, you know, sometimes I just like to kick back and enjoy a very simplistic game. And that's what this is. It's very laid back, simple. It's very linear. It follows true to the anime and manga pretty well. Like almost spot on. It's one of the better done games, not dub-wise, but just transferring the lines over and everything. It was very, they put a lot of effort into it, even if people are like, oh, it looks like shit or whatever, you know. Like, I love it. I don't know how else to put it. It's just, very simple and linear, and nothing is complex about it. It's just very fun. And I honestly haven't seen that much complaint for it. Like, I mean, I've seen a lot of complaint for it, but I haven't seen any constructive criticism. It's always just like, oh, well, it looks dumb or whatever, you know? Like, I've never seen anyone actually give, like, a legitimate complaint about it. But it's my second favorite game of all time, and it's a game of my favorite anime ever. Number 1. Okay, everybody saw this coming. It's the best. Simply put, it's always had a special place in my heart since the first time I played it, due to its innocence and gentle feel. I've 3-heart run this, I've speed run it, and I can never get tired of this wonderful game. I was 12 the first time I played this game, and I still love it to this day, and I'm 21 now. So that's a long fucking time to have a game as your top favorite game. Like I said, this game just has a very innocent and gentle feel to it. It's not one of the darker Zelda games. I can appreciate the darker Zelda games. I'm a huge fan of Twilight Princess and even Majora's Mask. But considering how many of the Zelda games deal with darker themes, I always like the ones that also have a more innocent theme. That they can deal with, oh, this villain wants to destroy the world or whatever, but they do so in a very cartoony kind of way. And I feel like Minish Cap really embodied that and handled it in a really good way and managed to bring out that inner innocence that reminds me of when I was 12. The good parts of being 12. Some of it sucked, but you know, I don't look back. When I look back on being 12, I only think of this game. And it has some really great things. I love the music. Oh my gosh, the music is so wonderful, especially the Temple of Droplets theme. And in general, I love the Temple of Droplets because it's an ice level. And nothing comes close to the Temple of Droplets. I also love the temple puzzles. Some of them are very complex and hard to get through, and some of them, they take some really, you have to really think about how to get through some things. But this is my all-time favorite game, and that will never change.